sun was up so high when I waked that I judged it was after 8 o'clock. I laid there in the grass in the cool shade, thinking of things and feeling rested and rather comfortable and satisfied. I could see the sun out at 1 or 2 holes, but mostly it was big trees all about and gloomy in there amongst them. There was freckled places on the ground where the light sifted down through the leaves, and the freckled places swapped about a little, showing there was a little breeze up there. A couple of squirrels sat on a limb and jabbered at me, very friendly. I was powerful lazy and comfortable, didn't want to get up and cook breakfast. Well, I was dozing off again when I thinks I hears a deep sound of boom away up the river. I rouses up and rests on my elbow and listens. Pretty soon I hears it again. I hopped up and went and looked out at a hole in the leaves, and I see a bunch of smoke laying on the water a long ways up, about abreast the ferry. And there was the ferry boat full of people floating along down. I knowed what was the matter now. Boom! I see the white smoke squirt out of the ferry boat's side. You see, they was firing cannon over the water, trying to make my carcass come up to the top. I was pretty hungry, but it weren't going to do it for me to start a fire because they might see the smoke. So I sat there and watched the cannon smoke and listened to the boom. The river was a mile wide there, and it always looks pretty on a summer morning. So I was having a good time enough seeing them hunt for my remainders if I only had a bite to eat. Well, then I happened to think how they always put quicksilver in loaves of bread and float them off because they always go right down to the drowned carcass and stop there. So, says I'll keep a lookout, and if any of them's floating around after me, I'll give them a show. I changed to the Illinois edge of the island to see what luck I could have, and I weren't disappointed. A big double loaf come along, and I most got it with a long stick, but my foot slipped and she floated out further. Of course, I was where the current set the closest to shore. I knowed enough for that. But by and by, along comes another one, and this time I won. I took out the plug, shook out the little dab of quicksilver, and set my teeth in. It was baker's bread. Well, the quality, none of your low-down corn pone. I got a good place amongst the leaves and sat there on a log munching the bread and watching the ferry boat and very well satisfied. And then something struck me. I says, now, I reckon the widow or the parson or somebody prayed that this bread would find me, and here it has gone and done it. So there ain't no doubt, but there is something in that thing. That is, there's something in it when a body like the widow or the parson prays, but it don't work for me. And I reckon it don't work for only just the right kind. I lit a pipe, had a good long smoke, and went on watching. The ferry boat was floating along with the current, and I allowed I'd have a chance to see who it was aboard when she come along, because she would come in close, right where the bread did. When she got pretty well along down towards me, I put out my pipe and went to where I fished out the bread and laid down behind a log on the bank in a little open place where the log forked. I could peep on through. By and by, she come along, and she drifted in so close that they could have run a plank out and walked ashore. Most everybody was on the boat. Pap and Judge Thatcher, and Bessie Thatcher, and Joe Harper, and Tom Sawyer, and his old Aunt Polly, and Sid, and Mary, and plenty more. Everybody was talking about the murder. But the captain broke in and says, "Look sharp now. The current sets in the closest here, and maybe he's washed ashore and got tangled amongst the brush at the water's edge. I hope so anyway." I didn't hope so. They all crowded up and leaned over the rails nearly in my face and kept still watching with all their might. I could see them first rate, but they couldn't see me. Then the captain sung out, "Stand away!" And the cannon let off such a blast right before me that it made me deaf with the noise and pretty near blind with the smoke. I judged I was gone. If they'd have had some bullets in, I reckon they'd have got the corpse they was after. Well, I see I weren't hurt, thanks to goodness. The boat floated on and went right out of sight around the shoulder of the island. I could hear the booming now and then, further and further off, and by and by, after an hour, I didn't hear it no more. The island was 3 miles long. I judged they'd got to the foot and was giving it up, but they didn't yet a while. They turned around the foot of the island and started up the channel on the Missouri side under steam and booming once in a while as they went. I crossed over to that side and watched them. When they got abreast the head of the island, they quit shooting, dropped over to the Missouri shore, and went home to the town. I knowed I was all right now. Nobody else would come hunting after me. I got my traps out of the canoe, made me a nice camp in the thick woods. I made a kind of tent out of my blanket to put my things under so the rain couldn't get at them. I catched a catfish and haggled them open with my saw, and towards sundown I started my campfire and had supper. Then I set out a line to catch some fish for breakfast. When it was dark, I sat by my campfire smoking and feeling pretty satisfied. But by and by, it got kind of lonesome. So I went and sat on the bank and listened to the currents washing along and counted the stars and drift logs and rafts that come down, and then went to bed. There ain't no better way to put in time when you are lonesome. You can't stay so. You soon get over it.